what should you expect your first month on the carnivore diet? Today, we're going to talk about everything that could come up so that you are better prepared. I'm Jenny. I've been on the carnivore diet for 2 years, and my first month on the carnivore diet was not fun. I just watched a few of Dr. Ken Berry's videos, and then I dove headfirst cold turkey into carnivore without much knowledge. I don't want you to go through what I went through, so let's quickly go through what you should expect this first month and how you can address each situation. First, you may run into some keto flu or oxalate dumping the first month. This is completely normal. Keto flu is just carbohydrate or sugar withdrawal. When you stop consuming carbs, your body is going to crave them, so you're going to go through some withdrawal symptoms. Let's quickly go over what these symptoms can include: fatigue, anxiety, racing heart, diarrhea, constipation, headache, nausea, food aversions, and aches and pains. I have a complete video on the keto flu that I will link in the description below, so be sure to give that a watch when you are done watching this video. But one of the best ways you can mitigate the worst of the keto flu symptoms is by having some electrolytes on hand. The electrolytes I use are Element electrolytes. I recommend the raw, unflavored packets for anybody that is starting the carnivore diet. When you start carnivore, you're going to lose some weight, and a lot of that is water weight. And when you're losing water, you're losing electrolytes. A lot of the fatigue and bowel movement related issues that come about in the beginning of carnivore are due to these electrolyte imbalances. I recommend doing 1 packet of the raw, unflavored Element electrolytes first thing in the morning in about 16 to 24 ounces of water before you have any keto flu symptoms. And then you can do a couple more packets throughout the day to help take the edge off. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order, so you can head over to drinkelement.com/JennyMiddich. That's DRINKLMNT.com/JennyMiddich and get your free sample pack with any order today. I strongly suggest picking up a few boxes of the raw, unflavored packets, and then you can use that code and you'll be able to try out all of their flavors. Now, if your keto flu goes longer than 3 weeks, you are most likely oxalate dumping. Oxalates are plant toxins that are shaped like sharp crystals. Not all plants contain them, but some commonly consumed healthy fruits and vegetables do contain them, like spinach, sweet potato, quinoa, kiwi, raspberry, and chocolate, just to name a few. If you ate a ton of oxalate-laden foods before you started carnivore and now you're finding that your keto flu is going longer than like 3 weeks, you are most likely oxalate dumping. When you stop consuming oxalate-rich foods, especially if you do it cold turkey, all of a sudden your body's like, oh wow, I can get rid of all these oxalates that are in my body, and it starts dumping them. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to the process, and it can happen in fits and starts for a very long time. If you'd like to learn more about oxalates and oxalate dumping, you need to check out the book Toxic Superfoods from Sally Norton. I'll link it in the description below, along with a free month of Audible, so you can listen to it for free if you want to. The next things you may encounter this first month on carnivore are bowel movement related issues. We're about to go into a TMI section of the video. Your body has to get used to using an entirely new fuel source, so it's understandable that, the system is going to be a little out of whack for a bit. You were most likely eating pretty low fat before you started, so when you increase the fat drastically, it can do some crazy things to your intestines. A lot of these bowel related issues can also be electrolyte related, so make sure you keep up with the electrolytes. I'm not just saying that like that's real. If you're experiencing a lot of diarrhea and or loose stools, it may be because you're eating too much fat and your body needs some time to get adjusted to it. So just kind of ramp the fat down a little bit. Another thing you can do is cut the hot rendered fats. So like melted butter or the fat that cooks out of ground beef. If you're like pouring that over your meat and then eating it, that can cause loose stool. So just ramp those down a little bit. On the other hand, if you're experiencing constipation, so if it's true constipation, like hard stools or just not going very often, you need to up the fats a little bit. That will help get everything moving again. But also just a note, when you're only consuming meat and animal products, your body is using up most of what you're consuming. So you may not be constipated. You may just not be creating as much fecal matter. And that's just kind of how it is. When you're eating a bunch of plants, you're pooping out a lot of the fiber. We can't digest that stuff. That's what's coming out. On the other hand, lots of meat, you just might not go to the bathroom as much. This tends to regulate though. After the first month or two, you will start to have regular bowel movements. They should be typically smooth, not hard to pass. And if they are a little bit hard, just make sure to increase the fat a little bit. And again, this is the TMI section of the video, but I get so many questions about this that it's just something we have to cover. The next thing you may run into your first month on carnivore are food aversions. This is totally normal. Most people experience this. I know for me, I couldn't look at another steak after 3 weeks on carnivore. I was just like, oh God, I just can't, hashtag first world problems. Oh, I can't look at a steak. But that improves. It does improve. So usually after the first 5 or 6 weeks on carnivore, the meat aversion issue will go away. But for the meantime, just try eating something different. If you just can't stand the thought of beef after eating it so often, switch to chicken. Add some pork. There's tons of different options out there. It may seem like carnivore is very limited, but it's less limited than you think. If you need some inspiration or help, I have a free grocery list for you. Head over to Instagram, follow me over there, and then send me a message and I will get that list to you pronto. The next thing you may encounter kind of piggybacks off of the food aversions, and that's food boredom. You may just start to get bored with the food. It's not that you're like, ugh, disgusted with it. You're just kind of like, I just don't really feel like eating. Now for me, I'm 2 years carnivore. This does not really happen for me anymore. And if it does, what I do is just mix it up a little bit. I'll go and get some sashimi, or we'll go to the local Mexican joint and I'll just eat a bunch of the meats there. But at that point, if you're getting bored, you need to change it up a bit. There's tons of delicious recipes, carnivore recipes here on YouTube. I have lots of recipe videos on my channel, but there's tons of other carnivores that make amazing food. Laura Spath, Steak and Butter Gal, Chris Cooking Nashville. There's so many excellent recipe videos here on YouTube. So if you're getting bored, find a few recipes and cook something different, and that will clear up pretty quickly. The next thing you may encounter your first month on carnivore is lack of appetite or just not eating enough food. Your appetite decreases on a carnivore diet because you're not having all those constant glucose spikes and dips that you used to when you were eating carbs. It takes your body a little bit of time to get used to this adjustment in fuel source, so you might not be hungry at all. You do need to make sure that you're getting enough food though, so if you are in week 1 or 2 of carnivore and you're like, oh, I'm just not eating anything and you're starting to feel crappy and all that kind of stuff, I recommend picking 2 times a day to eat and just make yourself eat at every meal. This will improve. But a lot of carnivores only eat once or twice a day. Some eat a little bit more than that. I know of some people that do 3, and anybody that's had bariatric surgery will probably have to eat more often, smaller meals, but your body will let you know when it's truly hungry, and that all adjusts after the first couple of months. Another thing that could come up the first month is a little bit of confusion over how to increase the animal fats in your diet. There's a common misconception that the carnivore diet is a high protein diet. It's actually not. It's a high fat, moderate protein diet. When you stop consuming carbs, you really need to up the fats because both of those are fuel sources. See them as gasoline for your vehicle. And if you're not eating the carbs, you have to still have gas for your car, so you have to eat the fat. But this is where it gets a little bit, confusing for people because they're so used to eating low fat. They're like, where do I get extra fat? Where's all this fat coming from in the carnivore diet? And I find the easiest way to increase the fat consumption is just to eat really fatty meat. This includes bacon, pork belly, pork chops, ribs, either pork or beef, fatty fish like salmon, ribeye steaks. That is a huge amount of fat on a ribeye steak. 80-20 ground beef, that's another great option. Just eating the fat that's on the meat is the easiest way to do it. You can also add butter to a bunch of stuff. I like to add a tablespoon of butter to any steak that I'm eating to increase the fat. You also have to remember to count the animal fats that you're cooking your food in. So I always cook my eggs in either bacon grease or butter. So I would add, that fat into my meal. You're eating that fat too, so be sure to remember that. Another way to increase the fat is by eating pemmican. Pemmican is just like a meal replacement bar. It's made with tallow, dehydrated meats, and some people make it with dehydrated berries. Obviously on carnivore, we wouldn't be doing that. There's a brand called Carnivore Bars right here. This is a delicious meal replacement bar that is a pemmican. This has 35 grams of fat in it, 20 grams of protein, and then the honey salted has 7 grams of carbs. So you're getting a lot of extra fat. That's an excellent way to add some fat. If you'd like to try them out, I'll put the information in the description. Another thing you may run into this first month on carnivore is some sleep issues. It's a very common keto flu symptom, unfortunately, and it does improve with time. You'll find after this first month or so on carnivore, your sleep is going to become incredible. But the first month can be hard. You can have restless legs. You could be waking up to go pee a lot. You could have nightmares, anxiety, things like that. You could fall asleep easy, but then you wake up in the middle of the night like you're not staying asleep. So I think a couple of things can help with this. First, increase your fat consumption. 100% that helps. I would also say make sure you're eating enough food. I know if you're not eating enough food throughout the day, at night you can start getting really hungry and blood sugar can get a little bit low. That's going to disturb your sleep. So make sure you're eating enough fat and eating enough food. I also think taking a low dose melatonin can be really helpful helpful. And by low dose, I mean getting like the 1 milligram pills of melatonin and taking, 1 to 3 of them. You really don't need much, but that can help you get over the hump. And again, the best solution for this is just giving it time. I know that sucks, but being patient, because your sleep will improve after the first month. Another thing some people run into their first month on carnivore is anxiety or racing heart or heart palpitations. And this is very common, but it can be really scary. I think first, increase your electrolytes and your hydration levels in general. That can take care of a lot of these issues. Next, again, make sure you're eating enough food and that you are getting enough fat. I definitely get some anxiety when I haven't eaten enough food. So be sure to take care of that next. And again, this is another one of those keto flu symptoms that's going to improve pretty quickly. But if you have heart palpitations or things like that after a few months on carnivore, you may need to add in some low sugar fruits and or vegetables to see if that helps. And the reason I bring this up is because one of my carnivore community members, he tried going really strict carnivore and he noticed that it would cause his AFib to flare up. And when he would just eat meat and then maybe like throw in an apple or two with it, completely went away. You need to figure out what works best for you. And for him, that's what works. It's okay to have, some fruits and vegetables here and there. That's not what gave you all of these issues in the first place. So you're going to figure out what works best for you. But typically the racing heart, the anxiety, all that kind of stuff, that all clears up within the first month. One of the most common questions I get from new carnivores is, when is this going to get easier? And I'm just here to tell you, the first month is the hardest. Most people start to feel better after the first 2 to 3 weeks. The keto flu starts to clear up. And again, if your keto flu is lasting longer than 3 weeks, you're probably doing some oxalate dumping. So eating a little bit of fruits and vegetables, that can help to slow down the oxalate dumping process. And if you are consuming a ton of oxalates before you're getting started on carnivore, I strongly suggest reading Sally Norton's book and then slowly ramping down the oxalate-rich foods first, because that will make the transition to carnivore just so much easier. Another question I get from new carnivores is, how much weight can I expect to lose the first month? And that is so different for every person. You could lose a ton of weight, you could lose no weight, you could gain weight. I think most people end up losing a few pounds at least, but it just also depends on how much you have to lose. When I started, I ended up losing 8 pounds my first month, and that was the most weight I had ever lost with any kind of dietary philosophy. So I was hooked. But I've, met some people that are like morbidly obese and they lose like 20 or 30 pounds the first month. Everybody is different. Also though, the scale is the very worst measurement tool that we have in our arsenal. I strongly suggest you take some baseline measurements in addition to a baseline weight, because sometimes you're going to lose inches before you lose pounds. I also think it's really important to go off of how your clothing is fitting and how you're feeling physically and mentally. Those indicators are so much better and really help you to see how much progress you've made, as opposed to just depending on what's showing up on the scale. The weight loss will come as you become more insulin sensitive. So even if you're losing weight really slowly, just remember that this is a process and it does take time. Another question I get is, when can I see the improvements in my metabolic health that I've heard so much about? And again, this is different for everybody. I think a lot of people though, at least in my experience, a lot of people have seen like crazy improvements in metabolic health issues pretty quickly, usually within the first few weeks, but for some people it just takes a little bit more time. I think it's really important to become intimately cued into how you feel mentally and physically. So I think it might be a good idea to like keep a journal. You might have a realization, and if you don't write it down, you're not going to remember it. So you might be like, what? I haven't had anxiety in like a week. Write that down. One big realization for me that was unexpected was I was like, I haven't had to use a breath mint in like a week. My oral health has improved drastically on carnivore. That's something that I had to write down. It was not expected. So just be sure to pay attention to these little improvements. What about energy levels? What can you expect energy-wise your first month on carnivore? Well, it really boils down to if you have keto flu or not. When you have keto flu, you're going to feel like you're sick. You're going to be tired. You're going to be wiped out. I was so wiped out the first 6 weeks of carnivore, and I think the first 2 weeks were just the keto flu, and then I had a lot of oxalate dumping because I was eating so many sweet potatoes and quinoa and dark chocolate and just, kiwis. I had kiwi every day. So I suffered. After that, the energy levels start going up. So remember, the first month is the hardest and it will get better. I know a lot of these things seem kind of scary, and you know, the first month on carnivore, it sucks. I'm not gonna lie to you, that is just the way it is for a lot of people. But after that first month, it's going to get so much easier and you're gonna start feeling a lot better. I have a few resources for you. I have a free grocery list and a free 2-week meal plan. So if you'd like either or both of those things, head over to Instagram, follow me over there, and then send me a message, and I will get those to you completely for free. If you're doing carnivore on your own and you need a little bit of support, accountability, and community, you can check out my Jenny Mittich Carnivore community. We are over 700 people strong, and we do monthly challenges, live streams, and so much more. I've got a link in the description where you can check us out for a few days to see if it fits your style. On the screen, I'm going to put a link to my complete in-depth guide to the carnivore diet for 2025. This video will help you get started on carnivore and give you everything you need to be successful. If you'd like some carnivore themed apparel, you can head over to jennymittich.shop and use code RIBEYE15 for 15% off your order. The shirt I'm wearing is the Carnivore Dictionary Definition shirt. This and 4 other designs are currently available over there. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I am very responsive to my comment section, and if you think a question is dumb, don't think that. If you're thinking that question, I guarantee you at least 10 other people are, and you can help others by asking that question. So with that, I will see you in the next video.